some things that have happened here that I think are interesting are the following, because I understand that the job of Pat Riley is to anticipate what the future looks like. But I do think we are all allowed to be surprised by a couple of things here, one of which is how much the game has changed. Okay, I don't know that we all could have anticipated that, given that Pat Riley spent the majority of his career throwing the ball to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning in the post, and taking the contested least valuable shot in the sport, also most inefficient. Like, that's how we were playing football, just like we were playing football once upon a time by just running the ball all the time.
Right.
Some things changed here that I understand where it is that the Miami Heat fall behind to how Boston is presently playing.
But the Heat have rolled with those changes. I mean, they've put together rosters recently that have won NBA championships.
Agreed, but since they were even with Boston at the rim in the bubble, what has happened since then is the sport has changed enough that the Celtics are great at threes and crush everybody at threes because they got 5 guys and a 7-3 guy who can do things Bam cannot do because he does not have the range that Chris Bosh might have developed over his career. So understood on the criticism. I'm just telling you, okay, that can be one that's hard to see. The next, when you look at, yes, they missed on Damian Lillard, they missed on Kevin Durant, they missed on DeRozan. They haven't gotten any of the players that they needed to allow Jimmy Butler to age with grace by having him become the second best player on the team. But the thing that I think you can forgive the Heat for not seeing is that I always thought Jimmy Butler was supposed to be the help, not need the help. Like, I always thought that he's Philadelphia's third guy. Like, that's what you need him to be if you want to beat Boston. And so I understand where it is. If your leadership there, you get caught off guard and you hesitate on Bradley Beal because you don't think he's worth the $50 million, because he's not. And everyone wants the pressure of, you got to make a move. You got to get Jimmy Moore. And you're not wrong to do that. You're especially not wrong because of how Boston did it and got rewarded for doing it, because they made the moves, and the Heat fan is sitting here still hurting from Kyle Lowry as the move.
No doubt. The Kyle Lowry thing, I don't think we pay enough attention to that, even with time. That was just such a disastrous move for this franchise. I think it's fair, like, if you want to armchair quarterback it and say they've actually been on the right side of not acquiring some of these talents. It actually ended up working out. The Damian Lillard contract's not that attractive, even though I still think that it would have been a better fit here. I think people tend to look over their multiple pursuits of Kevin Durant. A new owner waltzes into the league and just alphas them, and they've always been trying to get him, and that would have been huge. Chris Paul, that one is kind of debatable. Kyrie Irving, in retrospect, we understand why everybody was standoffish, but they should have pursued him. So,
whoa, that's easy to say now.
Yes,
God, nobody wanted it. That's so easy to say now.
110%, but I also think it's awfully convenient when people bring up Bradley Beal and they bring up, Damian Lillard. They omit the other ones where, like, taking this chance might have worked out there. Putting all that other stuff to his side. And just for a guy who coined the phrase disease of me, he couldn't get this wrong with Jimmy. Because Jimmy, at the very least, he helps you compete this year, and it's a contract that comes off the books. We understand he took his approach in the summer. It was dicey. Jimmy Butler and him started doing some posturing publicly, and it looked like they handled that. Then all these trade rumors start up where Shams is totally right. You don't go up against Shams in these situations. And Jimmy Butler's representation and the Miami Heat got cocky, had bravado. I'm not really sure what Jimmy Butler's agent was doing. That seems a little nefarious in retrospect. But the guy that coined the phrase disease of me did something that you don't really see executives do all that much. Put out like an old school press release saying he's not going to move. And in retrospect, he really minimized the possible return for Jimmy Butler by doing that. Because you back a guy who knows how to get out of these situations into a corner, and now every team that's checking in on Jimmy Butler understands you are out of moves and is lowballing you. And that is a byproduct of your initial approach, which was a bit prideful.
I think it's fair to say that that statement ended up backfiring because Jimmy turned it into a total mess from there. And who knows if that was actually the thing that sent it over the line, or if they already knew Jimmy was about to make some sort of mess and were trying to publicly get ahead of that. We don't know behind the scenes specifically what comes in one order.
He was
exactly.
already the mess has been here for a while.
But there's a difference between.
But then he gets suspended for 7 games.
Yeah, there's a difference between kind of dogging it on the court and getting suspended from rumors leaking through the media that you're okay with being traded. There's a difference between that and the press conference that comes after the Indiana Pacers game where he's throwing his coaches, his roster under the bus. That's a different thing.
All right, I want to talk about something because you guys mentioned Spo here. And this season, Spo has blown an 8-point lead in overtime, a 22-point fourth-quarter lead in Orlando. There are a lot of blown leads. There's the timeout at the end of a game when they didn't have a timeout, a decision that will haunt him for the remainder of his days and a few after he's gone.
But we chalk that one up to just the acquisition of Terry Rozier, which is also a stain on Pat Riley's legacy.
That timeout will chase Eric Spoelstra into the beyond. His spirit will be chased by that timeout that was called at the end of a game that he did not have.
What are we doing to poor Pat Riley? I mean, seriously, you guys sound so entitled. The Heat fan base. Get over yourselves and get over it. You're going through a bad season. Since 2006, you have won 3 NBA championships and been to the finals 7 times. 7 times since 2006. Every organization would take that type of run. What are you guys doing?
Are you going at us for questioning whether Pat Riley has failed the town, failed the city, failed the franchise player? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, I am.
Is that what you are doing?
Yes. Yes.
Chris Cody.
He deserves better from you guys.
Chris Cody, please get that sound. And I agree with Stugotz
Thank you.
on this. There were some people yesterday, and this is a tricky one because where do you draw the line in the lack of nuanced debate culture of today of firmly backing someone and also being critical of them? Because it should go without saying, Stugotz, this part should go without saying, that the reason Mike Ryan is accusing Pat Riley a bit prideful, no, it's more than a bit prideful, it's arrogance, and it's earned. Won every single place he's ever been, he's entitled to think he's the reason that happens. Because it was in New York, and it was in Los Angeles, and it was in Miami. And I saw what he inherited when he got to Miami. This was a spring break dump of a basketball franchise playing next to a hospital gym. He left Madison Square Garden in one of the greatest jobs there are in sport, where he was the head of fashion in Los Angeles and New York for creating the model of executive leadership that looks good and is in charge. And he reinvented a nowhere franchise down here. So, yeah, he's prideful. He's Belichick. And when you tell Belichick Brady's the reason you're winning, he's like, I made Brady. Who do you think made LeBron? He didn't win shit before he got here. Like, what? That's what you're going to get from. You think he's being a bit prideful? Bleep, yeah, he's being prideful when he's in Vegas and they've got him waiting outside the door of the hotel with his trophies because they're watching the World Cup and he can't get to LeBron James to recruit him. Like, that's losing for 10 years, and he's going to pridefully hold on to that because he got to 70 having all the power and winning for how many years? Like, in what world do you have Pat Riley not being prideful?
He deserves it. And he also deserves to leave this franchise however he wants it. I don't think it's hard to explain that every time you want to criticize something in the moment. We understand what he means to this franchise. We understand why we're here. But in this specific moment, in a vacuum, he has really botched this Jimmy Butler situation in terms of maximizing a return to the point that Jeremy and I are workshopping. Like, what's his move now? Just say, hey, we're going to shelve you for the rest of the year because just losing your contract
he has no moves, Mike.
Off our books
Mike, he got
is
this
more
one
value than acquiring anything else.
He has no moves. He got this one wrong, but for the most part, he's gotten it right.
The Terry Rozier, Kyle Lowry thing.
You do still have a month to kind of materialize all of this, where there might be teams that, whether it's injuries or otherwise, that think that they're close, that acquiring Jimmy Butler as a rental is going to get you what it is that you want. The way that the Heat played this was, we're going to go into the season, and if you decide to opt out at the end of it, then we will just have cap space to be able to maneuver with the roster moving forward. And that's essentially what they're going to try to create in this trade, is acquire expiring contracts and picks more likely than not. They're taking a guy they traded, Hassan Whiteside, Josh Richardson, and a protected first-round pick. They maximized the value, went to 2 finals, went to 3 conference finals, and on the back end, if they get that type of value back in expiring contracts, it was a success.
Let me talk for a moment about standards, because I do think the micro of the moment does tend to engulf the macro, even if the macro is half a century in the making.